of 2023. This is kind of a new concept for us, so we're excited for y'all to be here. This is Alabama's Philanthropic Frontier, and Greg was the Cary Center's first philanthropist in residence, and so we've had a long-standing relationship with him, and we're excited for him to be back in these sessions for us. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself further and
yeah, I'm Greg Doepke, and it's great to be here, and thank you all for coming. I think it's great. A little bit about you know, I moved down here because of family, grandchildren, and all that. And so we live here in Auburn. Got 2 daughters, grown daughters. One of them teaches here, and then 7 grandchildren, different places. And I got with Sid down when I first moved down here because of the Women's Philanthropy Board. That's what got me involved in it. And so we got talking and how we could help advance philanthropy. And so this is kind of an outgrowth of all that. Sid, you want to have anything to say? Or?
Well, just how appreciative we are for the work that you've done with us, but really, look, when we chatted, that just sparked a conversation. The feet on the ground have been Kim and Mary Elizabeth with you. And Mary Ellen. And so what they have done is a number of programming, not only just for WPB, but also for our Cary Center nonprofit program. But I think one of the most exciting things that's come out of our relationship with Greg has been this new certificate that we have, which is one of a kind, nationwide. And do we have a flyer up here? I want to grab a little bit of this.
But while Sid's doing that, can you all share a little bit about your name and what brought you here? Because I'd love to know a little bit more about each of you.
Sure. I'm a retired school teacher. I'm Celeste Dorman. And I've been part of the WPB since I think year 3 of it, or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember I was sitting to sleep, I came to sleep Hannon's guest. And when they were calling for, we didn't have 100 members yet. I think they needed 3 or 4 more to make 100. And she grabbed my arm, raised it, and said, she'll join. And I said, you're going to talk to Barry too about the financial side of this. Cleared it, of course. Anything Lee Cannon said went. So, and I have not regretted it one bit.
Okay.
So.
I'm Jennifer Kennedy. I'm Celeste's guest, and I joined last year.
Mhm.
So it's almost been a full year. I'm a retired nurse. I have 3 children. Daughter in college in Alabama. Don't make me that. Sid tried to talk me out of it, but I mean, how is made her mind up? I have a son that's a junior in high school, and then I have a 6th grader.
I'm Lori Shovellock. Retired here, will be 2 years next month.
Okay.
And I was in the recreation industry. I was a division director for Palm Beach County.
Okay.
And we both went to school here, and our family's all in the southeast. We don't have children. I've always been involved in nonprofits and raising funds and things, several boards in Florida. So this would be a friend introduced me to this.
Great.
So you're part of the group. I keep meeting you. I feel like you meet pretty much every day. Someone who graduated from Auburn who's just moved back to Auburn. Yeah, they're always great. They're like perfect people you want in your community. I'm Trish Moody, married to Scott. Met Celeste when our kids were in school together. We have a couple of family businesses in Andalusia. I'm in the Andalusia area a lot, but we live here in Auburn. Auburn Drive.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you all for being here. And once again, thank you for, Mary Elizabeth and Kim and all this. We'll go ahead and start this. And we have only an hour, obviously. And there's really 5 trends we're going to be talking about. And this is kind of exciting stuff because philanthropy is really changing. It really is. And so you'll be introduced, and so there'll be 5 trends. And the way we'll work it is we'll go through each trend, and I'll just talk a few minutes about each trend, and then I'll open it up for questions. And so you all can stay engaged.
Can we put it on pause for 2 seconds? It looks like we have a newcomer.
Sure.
Is that someone who's coming? Did y'all expect another one, Mary Elizabeth?
no, but that's fine. You're welcome.
I don't know if she's a newcomer or not, but I hate for her to miss out.
Oh, sure.
But you can.
Beach Monday through Thursday.
Oh, really?
We live in South Florida.
So in the meantime, while she comes in the meantime, this is the certificate program I was talking about. That I think this is probably the most exciting thing that's come out of our relationship with Greg. And it's a non-degree certificate program on philanthropy and how to be an aspirational philanthropist. Why don't you give them a little bit of details and I'll take care of it.
Well, I'll be talking a little bit about it in here, okay, and meanwhile, Matt James coming in.
Yeah. Hey, sweetie.
So anyway, we'll talk a little bit about it as we go along here. So, well, why don't we just go ahead? One thing you'll notice, you'll see this Aspire, the heart, the walking heart. That is Aspire. That's actually for those that are involved with teaching. That comes from my wife, who's a retired kindergarten teacher, and she's kind of been the inspiration for Aspire. So you'll always see Aspire, and what she is she's a reminder to us that we give from our heart. I mean, we first and foremost give from our heart. So you'll see her, and of course, she's carrying the satchel of our 4 gifts that we give: our time, our talents, our treasure, and trust. And a lot of times we don't talk about trust and trusted relationships. So we back up a little bit, and Jane, you want to introduce yourself real quickly?
Okay, hi everybody, sorry I'm late. Mac Jane Creighton, and I just graduated from Auburn University, my doctorate. And then I love all things nonprofit. I run one, so here I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to be teaching where?
At Lancaster State University in the fall.
Okay. Yeah, had to put that in. So anyway, we'll go ahead and move along on this. So we'll have a little chat after that. Let's see here, make sure I'm in the right spot. But, okay, the 5 trends on philanthropy on the philanthropic frontier. First one is, I'll go through these real quickly, okay? And then we'll go into them individually. Donor empowerment, which is meaning getting educated, obviously. Dual mission organizations, which is probably a kind of a whole new concept for a lot of people. Local impact investing and strength-based collaboration and leveraging technology. And now I'll go through each one of these, talk a couple minutes, and then we can kind of open it for questions. Intentional generosity. First and foremost, what that means is, for those of you that are parents, a question: Have you ever gotten education in how to be a parent? Or do you know of anybody who's gotten parenting? It's all from your examples and your parents and all that. It's the same thing as being a philanthropist. We've never really learned how to do it. We've never been to school. So when Sid was talking about the first program, I did some research nationwide, and there's hundreds of courses and programs on nonprofits. And all you think about it, advisors and everything else, it's all top down. So it doesn't come, you've never really been taught how to be intentionally generous. So what that means is it basically align your passion, strengths, and purpose for meaning and impact. And so generosity is the giving of time, talents, treasure, and trust. And so what this program that Sid referred to and what the learning series is all about is about how to be intentionally generous. And so what you do, you gain the know-how and the tools and the skills and fluency. And we talk about fluency, like if you're going to an advisor and you're asking a question, a lot of times it's all top down coming from your advisor. But if you're empowered and you're educated on how to ask the right questions and know the language of speaking in terms of philanthropy, you have a great more power in terms of finding out the right answers for you. Learn through courses, learning roadmap, and study groups such as this. And what the learning series, there aren't any. I've looked. There's nothing that teaches people how to become philanthropists. I mean, people have that concept of philanthropists being, the mega wealthy. It's really about each of us that wants to give of our time, talents, treasure, and trust. So we learn through study groups and a learning roadmap. And it's all based on inquiry-based questions. In other words, inquiry-based learning, and that is all about tailored to your personal, family, and financial situation. An example is this. This is the workbook I created that is tailored to your specific situation that you fill out. It's based on inquiry-based learning. And you can take a look at it later on. But what I'm sharing with you is philanthropy is becoming engaged in terms of your situation and being tailored for you. So what happens? You become super in terms of being competent, capable, and comfortable in working with nonprofits and working with advisors. Let me give you an example. You're a donor and you have an advisor, and you go to your advisor and say, and you initiate the conversation because you are capable and you've learned, oh, look, the Women's Philanthropy Award and the Carey Center is really, really important to me. It's a passion because I really believe in education of women. Advisor, I would like to make a qualified charitable distribution out of my IRA to the, can we talk about that? If you came up with that kind of conversation with an advisor, for most people, that would floor them because they're so used to giving advice. If you know the 15 things that 15 different types of vehicles for giving and financial, you are really empowered to have good conversations with your advisors. And you may know more than they do because most advisors are not really trained in philanthropy. And there's a lot of reasons why they don't get involved in philanthropy, which is part of the whole program here. In terms of that, let me just leave it and open it for questions on this specific trend in donor empowerment. Do you all have any questions on that?
Not yet. I want you to go through everything and then I'll have questions.
Okay.
See if it kind of connects.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. But anyway, education, as we know, education is everything. I mean, if we know more, then we can ask better questions. It's like any other parent. I use the analogy of being a parent. If we become a really good philanthropist, we can ask the right questions. We can do the right things, more intentional with more meaning and impact. Dual mission organizations. This is trend number 2. You all know nonprofits on the left side of the screen here. It's, typically I have a silo there because a lot of times we operate in silos as nonprofit. It's a 501c3, which is a tax code thing. And basically people create nonprofits, Jane, out of your heart. Okay, that's where most people create nonprofits, especially local nonprofits. On the other side of this dual arrow is a business, which is the financial. Purpose is to make a profit, and corporations, LLC. So it's a silo. Think of, those 2 silos of business and nonprofits because they're easy. They're what we've learned. It's top of mind. We don't think of in between, but the changing philanthropic frontier is all about dual mission organizations, which means that they both have a heart and they make money. They develop what we call sustainable revenues. In other words, the Carey Center is developing sustainable revenues. Nonprofits, especially local nonprofits, are based on grants. If you're on the left-hand side, completely pure nonprofit, but pure, you get them all from grants, from getting money. Give me, where do I find money? Where do I find money? So these dual mission organizations are both. They do good and they make sustainable revenues. You want to think of one, think of the athletic department. Okay, right? Do they make money? Okay. I just thought I'd throw that out there because that's an example of a nonprofit developing sustainable revenues, right? So they have a dual mission and it can be a nonprofit, a business, or a blend. So nonprofits can be, they fall under the umbrella of what we call social enterprises. And that's from one point to the other, can be different extremes. And so, you may not have heard of the concept of benefit corporation. Those are now legal. They are state chartered corporations that are now started, I think, a year and a half ago here in Alabama. And actually, there was an effort to build an ecosystem in Alabama of benefit corporations that make money and do social good. Okay, so that's, I don't know if it's a whole new concept for you all. So Alabama has it, and do you have any questions on this, or do you want me to continue on?
So when organizations like, Boundless Socks, where you purchase one pair of socks and they donate another pair of socks.
Sure.
On the shelter, and that seems to be like part of their foundational concept of the company.
Right.
That's one of the types of organizations you're on.
Yeah, hold it, Paul Newman, y'all go in the grocery store, Paul? Okay, you notice that? There you go, he's generating.
Cheese is the one.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the whole concept, Goodwill stores, okay? They do, there's all kinds of blended organizations that do social good and have sustainable revenues. The question on sustainable revenues comes in terms, how do people that are very much leading with their heart, which is what nonprofits do, where do they find the resources to develop sustainable revenues? Because that's not their normal thinking, or maybe not their experience. And so it's a matter of finding those people that can complement you to bring about these sustainable revenues. Did y'all have any questions on this so far? There's another concept called L3C, which is called the low profit limited liability company, which is along those same lines of a blended corporation. Okay. The next trend is impact investing. I think you all are really, this is going gangbusters in Alabama, okay? And impact investing is either institutions or individuals that invest in what we call opportunity zones, and I'll get into that. Opportunity zones, and I'll show you actually the opportunity zones in this area, that basically they provide a tax incentive to make investments in it. So individuals can invest in like a fund that invests in Opelika, or invest in Birmingham, or invest wherever they call home. And so there's a lot of, just like the dual mission organizations, you have a two-headed arrow here with the investing intention. On the left-hand side, the investors, a lot of times they're developers. They typically are more on the right-hand side, but you can invest in terms of impact investing on the left-hand side, which is 100% philanthropy. In other words, they just make grants because they want to do social good. Okay. On the right-hand side is the, pure market return. I want to get the most money I can. I'm not doing much. My impact is very secondary to making money. And then, of course, in between you have a balance of doing social good and investing in for money. And if you all have driven downtown Auburn, impact investing, okay? And on the right-hand side, we talk about return on investment. Everybody's probably heard of that. But if you're a nonprofit, on the left-hand side of the screen, I don't know if you've heard of social return on investment. That's a metric that is used to say, okay, how many, let's say, philanthropy board, how many new members did you get this year? If I contribute to this, give to the Carey Center for the Women's Philanthropy Board, what is my social return on investment? How many new members do I have? How much, whatever measurement you have for the social return. Now, most people are not really looking at that, but that more and more investors are looking, and those that are knowledgeable on philanthropy are looking at what is the social return on investment. Does that all kind of make sense to you all? Okay.
Sometimes you can quantify that something, don't you think? Like you give to, but you can also say number of people served.
Right. Right. So,
Number of children closed, number of people that, I mean, we can't quantify it.
yeah, one of the things in the learning series and in the design course I put in there is actually it's in the discovery course. It's a checklist for nonprofits. It basically goes through the eight different things to check the nonprofit when you're doing your due diligence, meaning check them, and one of them is a social return on investment. You know, so as if you're once again, if you learn how to be a better donor, you can make more impact with, if you're making, whether it be your time, talent, or treasure, or your trust and connection. Okay. So over here on this opportunity zone, I put in the opportunity zones are basically their economic census. It comes out of the 2017 Congress did this. And in Alabama, there are 158 tracts called opportunity zones that are based on basically income way below the average of 52,000 income that's in Alabama. I forget the exact number, but it's much lower than that. They were designated by the governor's office as opportunity zones for investment. And there are tax incentives, so you have investors, which can be individuals or institutions, invest in those opportunity zones. So if you have a hometown, let me go through the next slide here. Here's Auburn and surrounding areas. Okay, I took this off the Opportunity Alabama website. And just as a little bit of background, Opportunity Alabama is called Opal, was a kind of a grant that was created from Alabama Power Foundation. Okay, and they have gone gangbusters the last 3 or 4 years. I think they have 3 subsidiaries that are for-profit companies owned by a nonprofit. Okay, that are making money, that are investing all around Alabama. I think they have 36 different opportunity zones they're investing in now. So it's out there. And if you look here, okay, there's I-85 North. Okay, so these opportunity zones are the dark ones. Chambers County is a big area for an opportunity zone. Opelika, big area for opportunity zone investment. Auburn. If you go into detail on this, you'll see downtown Auburn. And it's the people living there. It's not necessarily the university. So, you know, these high rises and all, okay. Then you have Tuskegee there. So I know you'll see development coming off the interstate of Tuskegee. I bet you those were probably opportunity zones investments. Okay. And what they are, people developing because the developers have received in tax incentives. Okay, but this is really going gangbusters.
Are there any funding incentives?
I'm sorry?
Are there any loan incentives or gift incentives for them?
We'd have to talk to Opal, and they were adding staff left and right in Alabama. They just added somebody new for business development. They provide a lot of consultation and answering questions. And actually, I think Opal Lake is a great area for us to get involved with in terms of that. Because all the tax incentives, the loans, the money available for this, it's a matter of putting things together. Okay. The next trend is we covered the first 3, which are donor empowerment, dual missions, and impact investing. Social sector collaboration. And what that means is identifying and leveraging strengths for the common good. A prime example is a relationship that Aspire to Give Academy has with the Carey Center and the Women's Philanthropy Board. We each have our strengths. You know, in other words, I have a passion for helping people become better donors. And obviously, the educational mission is very much aligned between what my passion is and what the Carey Center is. So therefore, we can leverage our strengths together for the common good. Does that all kind of make sense to y'all? So that's pretty standard on that, but there's a lot that is involved in that. It involves nonprofits, businesses, community groups, government, and academics. For example, So I have started on the PowerPoint, nonprofits and businesses. How about nonprofits? They go in with their heart. Oh, I want to save whatever I want, my passion is, but they have to figure out how to get money because money is what runs the engine of the nonprofit. Okay, so one way of doing that is helping either find people that are really good at developing sustainable revenues on your staff or fundraising or whatever it may be, or helping the nonprofits develop their own sustainable revenues, because that is not their strength. Their strength is their passion, their mission. And so if they can find someone that can help them develop sustainable revenue, they diversify their funding and they allow them to continue with their mission. On the flip side, we've all heard of quiet quitting. We've all heard of those kind of things. Well, companies need help helping them align their financial mission with their social mission and helping the employees become more socially engaged. That yes, what my company is doing is really making a difference. And so there's a lot of cross feeding that needs it. All these companies are becoming more and more, as far as the trend goes, dual mission. People going, think of you yourselves, if you go to a some kind of vendor, whatever, are they doing a social mission? You know, that is not with what's important to me. Okay. Do you have any questions on this so far?
What's the difference, can you explain the hybrid ownership?
Sure, I'll get into this. Okay. We've all heard of public-private partnerships, and a prime example is probably, you know, when they do community sports center. A lot of times you have, you know, private, public partner with the government, right? We've all heard of those and seen those. Nonprofit groups like the Carey Center and Aspire to Give. We're working together collaboratively for a common mission, okay? But it's kind of on a local level. Then you have hybrid ownership. This is really probably outside the normal thinking. Okay, I'll use Opal, Opportunity Alabama. It was a spinoff, actually a grant from Alabama Power Foundation to create a nonprofit, Opportunity Alabama, which is impact investing. Since they were formed, I think 4 years ago, they have 3 for-profit businesses working that are owned by Opportunity Alabama. In other words, you have for-profit businesses owned by a nonprofit. Have you all ever been to the Williamsburg Foundation? Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a conversation many years ago with someone there. Oh, I didn't know the Williamsburg Foundation owns the hotels. They have a private business. Okay, so that is becoming more and more obvious. And you have nonprofits owning benefit corporations. There was a company up in Richmond that had called Impact Makers, which was a tech consulting service, IT. They were really going gangbusters. I think they ended up on the stock exchange. The owner gave 50% of his ownership to the Community Foundation of Virginia and 50% to another nonprofit, or I think it was 60-40. So those nonprofits, those major foundations now own for-profit business. I don't know if you all ever thought about that. That's how that works.
But that's how they sustain their nonprofit.
Right.
Without having to constantly ask for money from the public. Like, okay.
So you think of diversification of an investment portfolio?
Yeah.
They're getting diversified funding sources from, they can still take donations, right? But they have sustainable revenues. And so if we can help the nonprofits develop especially those smaller ones that really have a heart, help them develop sustainable revenues. Just think of the power of all the good we could do. Really, really good stuff. So moving along here, the next one is the common missions. And so typically this is tied to a common mission. So if you have a common mission and you have a certain, and somebody else has a strength, for example, I'll use the Women's Philanthropy Board and Aspire to Give. You know, I write and talk about empowerment of the individual to become better at giving, intentional generosity. It's right in line with it. So we have a common mission. And so You know, these kind of study groups are awesome because they fulfill a real need, and it's a common mission. Okay? Any questions on this? Okay. The last trend is leveraging technology. And we've covered the first four, you know, the donor empowerment, the dual mission organizations, the impact investing in the collaboration. Leveraging technology goes all it's online learning programs. You know, we all had the COVID. Okay. Well, COVID is, you know, that's when I wrote the learning series because it gave me an opportunity. But, you know, there's a lot of online learning we can do now. A lot of people like the virtual learning, makes it easy. The analysis, for example, Opal, Opportunity Alabama, they do a very thorough assessment of using technology to assess what makes the most sense to do that can raise the income of people in Alabama in these opportunity zones. Okay. And there's others as well. There's X4 Impact, there's which is out of the Northwest. Infrastructure for the under-resourced had a conversation with saying, okay, how can we bring technology to, you know, rural Alabama? You know, obviously we have the very under-resourced, rural, maybe the inner city. How can we bring, you know, the infrastructure, the technical tools, the technologies, you know, the internet access to all these? So that's part of, and that can be part of the opportunity zone type of work. Online study, social media. There's social media groups now for philanthropy. There are this study group. We can continue this study group in a wide variety of areas. But if you can find some commonality of people that want to do the same, don't want to learn different things, those are growing in gangbusters as well. Virtual cloud-based collaboration. Let me give you an example. I have a relative that owns a company that started a company a couple of years ago. He's in California. He and 7 partners, each partner in a different country. Okay. One in Ukraine, one in South Africa, one in England. He's in the United States. They are virtual. There's no offices. And now they have 25 employees. In other words, I don't know if you've heard of it, Google Workspace. Okay, Slack, Work Teams, Microsoft Teams. Now you can run a company without having building. And that's so it's becoming more and more available in the nonprofit sector. Just think of the power of being able to have conversations with resources. And I'm doing that now with folks in Kansas and Ohio and Virginia. And there's people that really kind of believe in this whole concept of accelerating philanthropic impact. And they all have a different strength. For example, Kansas has 35 years of rural entrepreneurship. Okay. Since out in Ohio, they have a social enterprise accelerator program they developed for social enterprise. And so all because it's virtual and because it's no matter where it is, we can bring all those resources to Alabama. It's really powerful stuff. So that's the trend of technology is going more virtual, and it doesn't have to be right here because there are so much resources outside of here of best practices that we can actually bring into Alabama or wherever we are. Okay. Any questions on that?
How would you set up the infrastructure to bring the internet to here? Because that seems like a huge problem. You know, like kids don't, you know, parents can't, they're not making money, so they're not going to be paying the $25 a month or even have the cable lines out there to have. So how would you get that there?
Well, first off, you know, this, for example, they have in Kansas, they have a called Network Kansas, and they have been doing this for 30 years, bringing all this kind of technology. So it's a matter of, engaging with them, and they want to share. People want, think about it, you all want to give. All these do-good organizations want to help others be successful. So, you know, I'm in conversation with them, and then, of course, Opportunity Alabama, this whole impact investing, if you take that idea and the government and get public involvement. For example, down in Florida, they have a Florida network, and I forget which city, they have somebody on the staff, the city government, whose job it is to engage for outreach, for collaboration, like I was talking about. So they engage for example, if citizens want a dog park, okay, and this has happened, I think, down in the Daytona, or maybe down there in southern Florida, where they actually have set up a fund, and they have the citizens that want to, they donate to it, because you can make a donation. I don't know if you know it, you can make a donation to a municipality and it's tax deductible. Okay, well, they set up a fund, so it's funded by private citizens for a dog park. Okay, that's the kind of collaboration that's really starting to happen. And so part of this study group is to say, okay, Alabama, let's start jumping in with a bandwagon.
No, this isn't specifically to do with nonprofits, but during COVID, when all schools were virtual, they set up the Wi-Fi hotspots on school buses.
Okay.
Well, and I think during COVID, for your particular question, I think during COVID, we have proven that we could reach out, and it was that collaboration between city, school, and Spectrum.
Right.
Making sure the kids had devices at home, the schools loaned them out, let them take them home. Spectrum made sure internet was turned on during that COVID duration. So we've shown it can be done. It's a matter of keeping it going and financially sustaining it.
Yes, and really, you know, so much of what we do is giving. It's kind of like, we just kind of do it, and it's not with real intentionality, I guess is the right word, saying, okay, this is a real problem. Let's get leaders from the public, the nonprofits, and work together, because so many times we have a tendency to work in our silos. Okay, I mean, it's just natural. I mean, we're so involved in what we're doing.
They turned around, made it happen in 2 weeks.
Well, I guess what I'm asking, so my son had a brain tumor and he had to relearn how to walk all over again, and I couldn't focus on, let's just get him walking. So I guess what I'm asking is, what is the first thing we had to concentrate on was making his foot flex. And we worked 6 months just on making his foot flex. So what is the first step to get to where we want to be is what I'm asking. How do you identify what that very, very, very first step needs to be before everything else can happen is what I'm asking.
What I'm asking is,
To me, it seems like internet everywhere, because education is key. And if you have the internet, then it's like you have everything.
Right, so if you think about our 4 gifts, we carry them in our satchel with us, our time, talents, treasure, and what's the 4th one? Trusted relationships. It is talked about so little. So in terms of a situation like you, I would say start talking with people and finding connections, because people want to help. It is part of our DNA to give, and people really feel good about giving. So if you have a situation, I would start tapping the resources and asking questions and saying, where can I find this? Because people will help. And then you get connected to those people that have the strengths, and they'll help. A prime example is Women's Philanthropy Board was looking for a speaker a couple of years ago. I have a good friend who founded Locus Impact Investing in Virginia. Okay, and asked her to come down here. And so I connected Terry with Mary Elizabeth. I don't know if you remember, she came and she actually talked as far as one of the side of things on the spring symposium. But it was a matter of giving trusted connections. And if we do more of that, and by asking the inquiry-based learning, if we're asking questions, then we can certainly find the answers to our solutions. I've become such a believer in that. I don't know if it,
Yeah, I was gonna say something because we are 100% virtual from the beginning. The only time we did we served in the capacity of not being a virtual organization, a virtual nonprofit, Dream Mentorship, the nonprofit that, so was the very first year, that was when I didn't know what I was doing. It was just a heart of like, oh, I wanted to help women in the urban area, and we did that first, the first classes in person, and then the following year, I realized that there were people who were interested in Texas, they were interested in Montgomery. I mean, it's close, but they can't drive here every weekend to take the classes. So I turned it into a virtual class via Zoom, and then COVID happened, and we became, that's actually the year we became a 501c3. And we launched on that platform of we are 100% online, virtual. We want people to be able to access our programs wherever. Now we had last year when, the 2020, we had 8 mentees, it was a small group. And this is you're gonna be surprised. 2022, last year, we had 86. Because it was online, and we had people from Zimbabwe, from Indonesia, from Kenya that could log in. I mean, the time zone, the lady from Indonesia, 12-hour time difference, and she would stay up till almost midnight just so she can attend the class. So yes, people love the technology, and which is why for us, we're very excited to even expand it further. So this year we're actually relaunching as a school because we only did it in the summer. So now we're going to be year round, both in the spring and the fall and the summer. But to kind of also get to your question, we've seen that people, whether in their housing projects or don't have access to Wi-Fi, they don't even know what Zoom is to start with, let alone log in. And that's one of the problems that we observed. So what we have done this year is start to partner with trusted individuals. We partner with churches. We're going to host a pop-up workshop in Montgomery, in Phoenix City. We partner with the Troy University to host this pop-up workshop right in their vicinity to say, come on, we're gonna log in, we're gonna teach you all the stuff that you're able to get online, you're able to access it.
That answers my question.
So that's kind of what we're doing to reach those people.
Yeah,
Getting them connected and then teaching them how to
Yeah.
one, that would be stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
and churches are great, the faith-based organizations are, and it's, okay, so you have a nonprofit or and you need a lot of people that form nonprofits or whatever, they come with their heart, they don't have the business side, and they probably don't have the technology side. And if you look at what's happening in the trends, and there's a number of articles written about if nonprofits don't accept or don't adapt to the new technologies, they're going to be left way behind because there's so much power. But you may not have that inclination. So you have to find a resource that has that strength, right? And also the passion for what you're doing. It's a matter of aligning passions with the skills and the strengths. Does that kind of all make sense?
And I have to brag on Matt Jane a little bit. She was nominated last year for the Alabama Nonprofit Employee of the Year Award, which is an initiative run by the Student Philanthropy Board. But not only that, which is an honor in itself, she was nominated. You have to be nominated by an employee, the nonprofit employee in your organization. She was nominated by 2 separate employees individually, and they didn't realize that the other one was. And I've never seen that before. So that's just a testament to her impact.
Thank you.
So hopefully this conversation around the table is helpful for you all too. So I put up here on this list some resources, and my thought is that I've checked with Mary Elizabeth and Ken. I can go ahead and make a listing of resources for each of these areas, the names and the websites if you want to go, because part of this is understanding where do you go for answers and where do you go for more because of education. And so we can do that. Are there any more questions you all have on what we've covered so far?
I have a question, but I
Sure.
don't know how, it was just kind of played in my head, when you were talking about, just because I also love local policy adoption. and we're talking about the opportunity zones, and I was just kind of trying to think, there's a marriage there where there is, the local government, they are adopting policies based on the opportunities that are in their communities, and then having nonprofits kind of work that out for them, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, that makes absolute sense. The challenge is, over the years, I think we've all grown these different sectors of society. Government kind of does their thing and they've kind of been in their silo. They're starting to reach out, but need more and more leaders to start engaging other sectors. And this Florida initiative where they have somebody on staff whose job is philanthropic outreach, to be able to engage the nonprofits, engage the businesses for the public good, because obviously that's what government's all about. So many times we get in our silos again. Okay. Another thing.
Yeah, if that collaboration were increased, I'm sure we'll see less of these emergency tax bids to make things happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, I personally am looking at seeing how we can import these best practices from around the world in terms of being able to, how we can adapt them into Alabama and help accelerate the impact, because there's so much we can all do, but it's a matter of asking questions, going out and asking questions and saying, okay, do you have anybody in the government who's the outreach for the government? Is there, and maybe you can answer that question. Because your public policy, right? I mean, you've kind of studied that. Do most governments have philanthropic outreach?
Not really, going back to my dissertation, they do not, but what I've seen is a lot of the outsourcing. Is actually very interesting. So my dissertation was looking at why do local governments adopt policies, and not to go into too deep into that, but one of the results show that local governments are motivated to adopt policies when a nonprofit is already doing it. So basically, if they see a nonprofit providing a service, they get excited about that. Like, okay, sure, we're gonna go ahead and do it too, which was kind of contrary to if you're familiar with the duplication literature out there, that, if a nonprofit is doing something, a local government is not going to do it. So it was in contrast. It was very interesting to see that. I also interviewed nonprofit and local government officials about it, and the results were the same. So that was interesting to see that. So to answer your question, they may not have an actual outreach office, but they do a lot of collaboration. There's examples in Boston of how these advocacy groups and all of that, they actually kind of influence policies based on the work that they are doing in their communities.
So they're asking, basically, government is watching nonprofits do it. If it succeeds, they're willing to jump on board. But it almost feels like they should be the leaders,
Right.
pushing it the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's government, each organ, not every sector has their strengths. It's identifying what those strengths are and saying, I'm trying to be something I'm not. Understanding what your strengths are and then engaging others that bring those strengths to the table and then collaborating together for the common good.
And finding someone in the governmental agency that would be a good marriage for you is the way to go. I've worked on 2 deals like this in my lifetime, one from the nonprofit side and one from the government side. And it was from the nonprofit side, it was developing transitional housing for women and their children from domestic violence. And we found the Miami-Dade County Commissioner who would listen to our story, and then they in turn put us in touch with the proper departments and everything, and it worked. We developed a 20-unit apartment complex that we owned and paid all the upkeep on and everything, but the county ran it and provided all the social services, the counselors. So, but yeah, it's finding who who you can identify that will.
Once again, is to reach out, and people really do care and they really want to help. So it's just a matter of saying, you know, when you're talking with people, saying, who else may I talk with? Would you suggest I talk with that could maybe help me with this? People will do it all the time. They will give you names and help connect you with the resources you need. It's just a matter of asking.
I think that's the problem. There's so many who are afraid to.
Yes.
No one wants to admit they need help.
But if you,
And whether personally, business or anything, yeah, it just.
There's a challenge to asking people,
Yeah,
especially when you're
yeah.
asking for funds and big input. And sometimes it's a matter of finding a person who knows someone in there.
Right.
Who goes with you and they say,
Right.
you know,
yeah,
I know this person, I know this organization.
It's
This is
really-
what they have to say.
when I first started the research on this during COVID, you know, lesson 2 of the fundamentals course is tap your donor roots. And you can look at the psychologists and the studies and all the research done. It's unbelievable how it's in our DNA to give, because giving makes us feel really good in helping somebody else. It's just one of those psychological things. We do it. And that's, so we have to recognize that we do it, and so asking of others, you know, who else can I talk with? People will give you the names and will connect you with other people.
It's getting over that hurdle of asking, and that's,
Yeah.
but I'm starting to wrap my head around, and this has been a recent for me. The answer will always be no until you ask. And once that hit home, like, I'm getting better at this, you know, realizing.
But you know, it depends
And then you get friends and you just say, I'm not even asking, I'm just telling you.
I think it's on the line.
Sid is actually one of my people who inspired me, because she gets to know people enough that she doesn't ask much anymore. She just says, hey,
Girl, she
I need you to
talks
do this, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
She will be best friends in
But I-
5 minutes by the time we've left someplace.
but I really think it's a human strength to want to give and want to help.
Right.
Human weakness to ask for it.
good point.
Yeah, that's.
And I think that's the problem that.
But see,
Need to overcome.
that's what got my passion on this, because there has been no courses available. Of the hundreds of courses out there for all the universities in the United States, there's nothing that teaches people this whole thing about tap your donor roots. How do you give? What are the different financial ways of giving? How do you evaluate a nonprofit? How do you leave a legacy for your loved ones? How do you pass it? How do you get organ? There's nothing out there that teaches you. And all the advice historically has been top down. The money's been coming down and the advice. And so if we become more educated, then we can go into our advisors, or we can go with, if I have a nonprofit and we say, we know we want to align their passions with the purpose, and we know, coming from the donor's perspective, and we're a nonprofit, and we say, I see you're really passionate about women. And by the way, you want to help young women become better. Well, if it's aligned with their passion, people will then give with purpose, and then it makes them feel really good giving because they're making an impact. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, my observation is, and my husband and I fall into this, you often give to just who asks.
Right.
And so the organizations like Auburn that have, you know, full-time development people, when in fact, you know, for example, we have a heart for poor children in Africa, East Africa. But there's nobody, those people don't have as many resources, and they don't have a development professional right here in town. And so if you're not, it's for us, it's about being intentional.
Yeah,
You don't have unlimited money.
well, that's right. Typically,
And aligning what, I love what you said about aligning it with your truth.
yeah, and what I call the passions, aligning your passions, positives with your purpose. And so we get asked all the time. But if you have aligned, if you know what your passions are and you know what your positives are, positives being your strengths and what gives you real joy and meaning. Okay, and you have all that aligned, you know what your purpose is, then then you feel okay, you feel confident in saying, no, that's really not my passion. I have my passion. I'm giving to this for these reasons because it is from my perspective. You know, I don't want to, because we always get asked all the time. So it's okay to say no if it's not aligned with your passions. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you said this in your intro or not, but Greg is a certified advisor in philanthropy. So has a lot of background of, you know.
Well,
research and experience.
And the other thing is, you know, one of the things is, and I do it in the design course, I teach 16 different ways of giving money. Qualified charitable distributions, you know, appreciated assets, charitable remainder, all those kind of things. So if you have at least a basic understanding of that, and you go into an advisor and you say, by the way, I think I want to create a charitable remainder trust with a donor advised fund as my beneficiary of the trust, you would blow their socks off because they would, and you don't have to understand a lot about it, but you would be speaking the language of philanthropy with others because typically it's all been advice down. And so I'm a big believer in empowering through education. So if you can figure out for your own individual family, the best way of giving money, and everybody's different. Everybody has a different financial situation, you know, then they can become much more powerful and intentional, especially when it's passed on to both family and special causes, your favorite causes, because typically for most people, family is first. Okay, but too much, you know, as well as too much money can really is a two-edged sword. It can do really good, and it can do really not good with a lot of unintended consequences. And I've seen, my prior career as a financial planner, I was involved with that, and I saw all kinds of families with all kinds of issues. A lot of them were not financial. It was the dynamics. I'm sure you all can understand that. Okay, are we near the end here? Okay, do you want to say anything about the upcoming study?
Sure. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah.
Our second meeting of the study club is going to be Friday, February 10th, and that is where we will discuss the family love letters, which I'll let Greg explain.
Yeah, basically what I wrote is this is actually part of the legacy course is love letters to your family. Because it's we'll cover it in the course, but it's a lot about how you can communicate to your family, your loved ones, and by being organized either for your parents, okay, or yourselves, or your children want you to be organized, because that's happened too. Okay, this will help, and it's worth a lot of conversation because there's meaningful conversations that come out of this. I call them meaningful conversations. And so we can talk a little bit of how you engage in those meaningful conversations as part of this family love letters, study group. So I certainly welcome you all to come back then and bring, you know, others as well.
And the idea is that getting your affairs in order ahead of time is a gift to your families.
Well, let's talk about it, we don't always know where to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know people, I mean, no,
I've seen
I
it.
know people lost the husband, didn't know property taxes are coming in the mail and
Yeah.
do you know they own the property, you know, stuff like that. And so
Believe it.
I've,
There's some real stuff, but there's some real good stories too. And so by going in the study group, we will make them all good stories for you. Okay? So,
Yeah.
okay?
And that'll be right here again. Same time, same place, 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock,
Friday night. We'll bring lunch again.
okay? So I don't know whether we're continuing to record this, Kim, or not. Anyway, so do you all have more questions? I guess the session's over, right?
It is 12:59, so yes.
The next one, I would love to attend that, but I'm not going to be able to. And I'm wondering if that would be allowed.
There'll be, yes, we'll record all 3 sessions and then we'll have them up on our YouTube channel.
Okay, great.
You know, and an informal thing for y'all, you know, we talked about all this type of stuff. Would y'all, what is your interest? Because it's obviously, you know, these study groups, we want to, you know, make it for you. So what is your passion for learning in this whole area of becoming, you know, a better donor, a better person and for family and all this?
For me, we are buying out our business partner. And we, my husband is a professional engineer and we own a construction company. And so with that, without being too lengthy, we get taxed in every state and county that we do a job. So we love to give, but we also have to give, or it goes to the government. So for us, you know, that's gonna kind of fall on my lap about what for, because the business partner used to be my father-in-law's business partner, but he's kind of in between my husband and my father-in-law's age, so we kind of inherited him, and now he's ready to go. But his wife always chose.
Yeah.
And so we've never been in a position where we had a lot of money to donate before, and then we donated money, but I mean, so
What,
for example, like, she would just give to the Palm Beach Food Bank, and when I mean give, I mean, we're talking like $50,000. Because they didn't really think about stuff like that. So I have a daughter who's a lot like you, a lot like you. A lot like you know, who has opinions about stuff, and so it's kind of learning about, I don't even know what our passion is. And I don't, you know, I don't, and then our affairs before, we didn't have anything, and when we had life insurance and that was about it, but now we have a lot of assets that we need to put together, and, you know, like my daughter's 20, I have a handicapped son. And, you know, I'm asking my friend here, would you be willing to be the person that Kylie can turn? So there's a lot of that. So like, this came up and we had just been talking about this last Friday. And so this was like written for us, because right now we're just kind of all over the place and we don't know anything, and just kind of just educating yourself about that.
I mean, this is really for you. I
This is
mean,
written for her. For her situation like right now.
Yeah, like right now, you don't understand, like they are fighting right now about how we're gonna get this guy to leave who wants to leave. So it's crazy. So we're just,
Yeah.
you know, I'm out of the, I used to be in the advice business. I'm out of the advice
Yeah.
business, but we can certainly do a lot of education,
yeah, I
and
just need to
coaching,
learn.
coaching, you
I
know.
need to learn.
And learning, and these 60, there's called split interest gifts between family and charity, financial gifting. I mean, we can cover all
We can
those.
just talk about just, not even the death part, but just the giving each year
We're
part.
giving limit.
Yeah, because if that happens next year, where we gotta figure out where we have to give
Well,
so much.
We need to move you into that blended business.
Yeah.
Model right here, there.
And my husband doesn't have time for any of
Oh,
this,
right.
so he's like, take care of it. I don't, you
Dual
know,
mission organization, that would be.
and as much as I love the food bank, I think that there's other things that could be better served. Especially, you know, and we live in Florida and we live here, so I can go anywhere, really.
It sounds like there's interest in a lot of topics that we're
Yeah.
talking about. And if you all want to become more empowered, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for these study groups to keep going. And I can certainly, I have all the content. It's a matter of extracting it and tailoring it for the study group.
Which one do you want? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe if you could email Kim and Mary Elizabeth and saying, hey, or just drop them a note saying, hey, I have an interest in this.
Yeah.
Or what?
I want to go through the series.
I
And
need
then-
to-
and then
that's
see
just-
what's
I need to
needed.
learn everything first, and then I need to like focus in, because I don't even know.
Yeah, but we
Like,
love
you don't-
suggestions, like that's
Yeah, okay.
how we come up with what we're gonna.
Well, I'm very excited to be here,
Yeah.
so I'm just like, for me, I'm just gonna just like soak it all in and My daughter's actually taking a class about this quarter, so I'm sure I'll hear a lot about that from her, too.
But, you know, this whole thing on the donors workbook, it is the engagement. It
Right.
is your engagement tailored to you, so. You know, these study groups are kind of an extraction from different parts of this. So, you know, even the donor fundamentals is probably unbelievably valuable in terms of just that course, which is kind of the precursor to everything. But we can kind of go through study sessions on that, on the life journey, because it's fundamental to everything. So anyway, I didn't mean to keep going on. I'm excited and I'm excited that y'all are engaged in this and want to do what I can to help you all do what you do and do more good, right?
And please spread the word about the next couple of sessions. I've been through all of the family love letters, especially, and they're extremely helpful. I think there's a lot.
That's what I'm excited.
And
Let people know.
But I think
That-
if we
that-
finish
that-
this series, I'm not gonna know what else is, what else I need to
Right.
learn.
Yeah.
Actually, the whole love letter thing could be a whole day thing, but
Oh, yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
And it might stem into that. That may be what we want to focus on and ask you to meet with us again about it later.
You know, I'm, we'll have to talk about how we're gonna do this. But I'm excited about the possibilities for the study group. So,
Thank you for having us.
well, thank you all for coming.
Thank
Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your message.
People, it's fine. Take care of it.
I think, well, you don't know if I can do that.